Hi, I am Melissa Banko, and welcome to the Banko Buzz, a commercial interior design podcast. As a professional leader in our design industry, we found that there were a lot of questions that were coming to me and to us about business and growth and mentorship and really the people behind the design. So we created the Banko Buzz. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for joining us on the Banko Buzz. Hey friends and listeners, Melissa Banko here. Welcome back to the Banko Buzz. I'm here with my friend today, Nate Jones, founder of Dash Media, and we're going to talk all things family, faith, being a business owner. It's a crazy world out there, and we just love to hang out, and I get to record with you today and talk through some of those things. Super excited to have you here today.
Yeah, family, faith, and football. We're in the South, baby.
You're doing some really cool things through powerful storytelling, flipping the script on how we view aging from the sidelines to senior living. You have this passion around seniors and have an incredible story. So we're so excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's cool coming back to the Banko offices. And
we were just talking about 3 years ago moving in this building that we're sitting in now, and you helping us with some content, and it doesn't seem like 3 years ago.
And I always relate when you guys did the renovations to my puppy, my dog. 'Cause
yes.
We had Boone.
Oh my gosh, he was so little.
So he was like 10 pounds, and now he's this big, fat golden retriever.
Well, and we know the story that was funny about Boone being in here is that he was eating all sorts of things off the floor, including Jack York's dog's senior medication.
Yes.
So that was a story in itself. We make a big bang, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he is a big boy, and we've known each other for a long time. We've been growing businesses alongside each other. And this season on the podcast, we're talking about seasons of life and seasons in our career and seasons, through the journey of life. And you've had some really exciting seasons these last couple of years that you've been navigating through with family, with personal life, with starting a business and becoming an entrepreneur. So we're going to talk about all that stuff today.
Love it. Can't wait.
So football coach to seniors, how did that happen? Give us the quick rundown of what that looks like, because that's a pretty big jump, man. That's a kind of a polarizing difference of career paths there.
Yeah, when you're growing up, son of a football coach, and you think your whole life, I'm going to be a football coach when I grow up. It doesn't really make sense. You wouldn't predict that you end up having a career talking to 90-year-olds, going from coaching football to that. So kind of the way it all happened was I worked for Coach Rick. I was the guy that did the signals on the sideline for Coach Bobo at Georgia. I did that.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. I did that for 3 years. And I loved it. It was my dream as a kid to coach for the University of Georgia someday. I didn't think it would happen when I was 22 in that context, when I dreamed it up myself. But it happened, and it still didn't feel like it was what I was supposed to do. And so I ended up working with a guy who, his name is Ty Fricks. He was selling Fitbits to college athletic programs and monitoring their sleep and activity, things like that. And while I was his sales guy, it was just me and him. And while we were working together, I was up in D.C., and I met this guy named John Glass from PGIM.
Yep.
He was working at Thrive Senior Living at the time. And he was like, we want to monitor our residents' sleep and activity. And I was like, a nursing home? Like, that's kind of strange that, like, I went to a nursing home when I was a kid to sing Christmas carols and swore that I would never go back. Yeah, it just didn't smell good.
Anybody who did youth group work, you were visiting the local nursing home or senior living community for sure.
Yeah, and so I was like, sure, I'll go. And so I had like a couple $100 in my bank account. I just graduated college, making like $20,000 a year with this new job. And I went and slept in the airport, had my tuxedo from our football banquet that I wore to the grand opening, because I was like, I don't know what to wear. I literally show up in a tuxedo. Everyone's like, business casual. And I'm like, tuxedo, 22-year-old walking in. I think I'm walking into a nursing home. And I end up standing in line to check in. It ended up being for IN12 Jack York's company, who later on hired me into the industry. But I ended up at this table with these 5 residents that just blew my mind with stories. And I sat there and thought in the airport that night when I went back to sleep, why did I think so negatively about senior living, this thing called senior living? And so I just became obsessed at that point to go back. I went to a lot of different ones in Atlanta and would just go and spend time with residents. And we were trying to sell the whole Fitbit thing in senior living. But ultimately, it led me to wanting to change what people thought about senior living, because I realized that most people thought what I thought about senior living, which it was this kind of like a negative stigma, and aging was scary. Nursing homes are bad. Senior living is just, they're all kind of the same thing. And it's just far from the truth.
I think it's just a lack of not knowing, right? There's always, that's a life lesson, right? That
Yep.
it's just lack of exposure or lack of knowing. It can be a little scary.
Yeah.
Sort of parallel to my story in design. You come out of school and it's like, I'm gonna work in hospitality or multifamily, and those are great, sexy industries to go into. And it's not until you're exposed to it that
Yep.
a lot of us fall in love with it. And you
Yep.
don't think maybe coming out out of college or whatever that you're going to land in the senior space, but it tugs at your heart and it finds you,
does.
when it's meant to be, your purpose, I guess. So,
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Melissa Banko, founder and visionary here at Banko Design. Welcome to season 2 of the Banko Buzz, where we are focusing on all of the seasons that each of us go through in our career paths. We're talking to lots of partners and consultants and advocates for our industry. Tune in and follow us along this entire season. And also, you can find us on anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. So we're selling Fitbits. You're hanging out with seniors. So fast forward a little bit, you started a company based on this passion for storytelling. So tell us about how Dash came to be, where this brainchild came from, because it grew legs quick, man. So, and you're doing some amazing things. So talk to us about that, and then I want to talk to you about sort of the parallel of maybe why we're called to do these things, because every entrepreneur has that story of the calling. So what does that look like for you?
Well, I think some people think that like it just happens overnight too. I remember when I got hired into senior living in like 2017, 2018, I was at a conference and I was kind of bored. It was like 4 hours of sessions. And so I was like, I'm going to create an Instagram account to change what my friends think about what I do for a living. Because I always got made fun of, like, you do old people stuff. That's what's your obsession with old people? That's how they still kind of make fun of me for that.
How you like me now, though?
Yeah, I'm like, I just like the, whatever. And so I was sitting in the back of the room and I created an Instagram account called Southern Senior Living Awards at the time. Now it's called Senior Living Stories.
Yes.
And the whole reason why I created it was to change what my friends thought about what I did for a living. And I was going to all these places, hearing all these amazing stories. So I was like, well, I probably could reshare them on this channel, and it would kind of change people's perception about what I did for a living, about this industry. And so that was 2018. I didn't get paid for doing this. I did it for like 5-6 years. I've still never gotten like a brand deal or anything from it. I just genuinely wanted to share things that I thought were cool with seniors. And what happened was, over time it grew. Today it's like close to 200,000 followers, reaching a couple million people every month. But over time, I was posting some terrible content, like that I thought was funny or interesting, that would get like 1 like. But over time, just because I wasn't trying to get anything out of it, I was just doing it because I was passionate about it. It taught me so many lessons and things about sharing content, about senior living, about why other people weren't sharing good content, like why senior living communities weren't sharing their content. And so over time, 2022 happened. I was in between jobs, and I was like, I'm going to give myself 3 months to fill this gap, this need that every senior living organization seems to have of, we know we have great stories, we know they're in these communities, but the activities director struggles with consistency or talent to be able to film. They have a full-time job. The marketing director has a full-time job. They don't have time to produce 4 videos a week to post out there. And there's not a fit, or we can't find anybody who's knows our industry enough to sit down with a 90-year-old, talk to them in a way that they want to tell their story. And so we started Dash with that hope and dream in mind, that we wanted to be the storytellers, the content creators for senior living organizations. And, it doesn't always go how you plan, but 3 years later, we work with about 25 operators around the country, and we're telling, I think we'll probably make about 6,000 to 7,000 videos this year, sharing the stories of seniors.
So you gave yourself 3 months. You're 3 years in. You just getting started.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I remember we were like, my first goal was I just wanted to replace my salary in 3 months. And so when I did that, well, then you have all these expenses. You're like, well, I replaced my salary, but I'm spending way more money. So you're like, okay, I need
struggle of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so
the
I need
things you don't think about.
Yeah, so you need to hire people to fill in the gaps. But I just looked every month. Am I in the green? Did I make $1 this month? If I made $1, we're gonna do it again next month. If I made, and we had a couple months where we lost money, but you try things that you learn from, and things work out. But there were a lot of lessons learned. I think then our next goal was like, let's get to 20 clients, like let's get to 20 partners. And then we're like, that'll be 5-10 years. Like that's so hard to get to. And then now I think our goal is like maybe 50 would be the mark that we're trying to hit. But you can get caught up in numbers. You just, every single day, you just do what you're supposed to do, make sure your clients are happy, make sure you're putting out good work, and everything else kind of takes care of itself.
I was about to say, if you're chasing the money, you're kind of doing it backwards.
Yeah.
So it is just kind of doing what you set out to do and following that passion and that calling, and a lot of the other things will follow. Yep. So let's talk about being faithful as an entrepreneur and how that affects decision-making and how you're growing your business and how you're doing business. So you and I talk a lot about our faith and our relationship with Christ and what that looks like in weaving through a mission into, sort of your day-to-day job. Mm-hmm. So, you have folks who say that leap is scary. I'm not sure if I can start the business I've always thought about doing, or I have this passion. Talk to me about those conversations you had with yourself or that you had during quiet time to actually take that leap, because it does take quite a bit of faith. It takes faith as you are, navigating these, first couple of years and certainly beyond. So what does that look like for you, and how do you pull that through in your day to day? And just sort of leaning in even when time, because it's not easy. Like you said, It's not, this isn't, there isn't always a success story at the end of every try. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two views I have in my mind. It's like, what's Dash's mission, and then what is my personal mission?
How do you separate that as an entrepreneur?
I think they're weaved together. I think they have to go parallel to one another. I think Simon Sinek has a book called The Infinite Game, and he talks about, like, I can't remember the exact term he used, but basically like the company's infinite game is like a mission that's going to go beyond you and beyond your time. And like, what is that? And looking at it more in an infinite way, as opposed, it's like when you lose a sports game, it's like, yes, the finite look at that loss is you lost. But if you learn lessons from that loss, you have more of an infinite game mindset. And so both the company has an infinite game mindset. I have an infinite game mindset. They go parallel to each other. The company's is to engage the world through the eyes of the older adults. Mine is to know Jesus and make Jesus known. And so how can I do that through engaging the world through the eyes of older adults? There's a million different ways. These seniors have the most powerful testimonials you can ever hear. And contrary, some have never heard the good news. And so if there was never a company that sat down with seniors who are in the last chapter of their life to ask them about their faith or to share with them about your faith and just have that conversation, then they may never hear it. They may never have an opportunity to hear it again. And so if it just meant one person sharing their story that could impact another person, then it was worth it. It didn't matter what happened, with Dash. And so I think that's been my mindset always from the beginning. You know, you get scared a little bit about talking about it because you don't want to offend people in today's age. But I think a conviction that I've had lately has been a good cop out for Christians is, well, people know by my actions and how I treat them. True, but we're also called to talk about it. And the gospel is it's a decision. You know, it's something that is divisive in some ways. And I think that you have to be okay with talking about it because I heard a quote from an atheist recently. He was like, how much do you have to hate me not to share with me the gospel if you believe in it? You know? And so that's stuck with me. It's like, okay, well, I just want to share this because I love you, not because I want to change your mind on something. So there's a lot in there.
There is, but you know, and something that I have an internal conversation with myself about when it comes to that parallel of, you know, my beliefs and religion and where I sit and my values and business is, do you ever feel like your internal narrative gets muddled? You know, it's like, am I being called to that? Is that the Holy Spirit? Mm-hmm. And is that tug and what I'm hearing, is that him or is it my own agenda? And that's tough to sort of decipher through that. Do you ever have situations where you have that same conversation? I'm curious of just, I hear this and sometimes I hear it and I go, oh, that's work. You know, is that really, or is it my own, you know, is it my own? Am I thinking those things for my own gain? How do you decipher between those two things? That's tough, man.
It is a tough one. I mean, I have one right now that I'm going through personally for like the last couple of years. For me, it happens a lot at church where I feel like God like tugs on my heart, and it's like, okay, does this come back? Does this come back? Okay, yes, it's coming back. And the one recently was there's this company called God Behind Bars. And they they go and have like worship events in maximum security prisons. And they're like crazy. Like they've gotten so much traction. They have like 1 million followers on all of these different platforms now, just doing amazing work. And I met the chief marketing officer of that at a Speak conference at Passion City Church in Atlanta. He was telling me about it. And so like, I was like, why don't we do that for seniors? Like, inmates don't hear they may never hear the gospel, have an opportunity to hear the gospel again. Great mission. Seniors, not that prisons and senior living are anywhere close to each other.
But on some level, like maybe last stop.
Yeah,
I know that sounds sort of terrible to relate that, but in a season where that might be.
Yeah, a lot of seniors say, we hope this is my last home that I move into. It's not a bad thing to say. And so I think that this God behind bars concept, the tug in my heart has been, should we do these events for seniors to put on an event, share the gospel with seniors? But then the flip side of me is like, am I doing this because God Behind Bars got millions of views and I know this would get a lot of traction through sharing people's testimony? So like, am I doing it seems silly to say, but like, I know it will be successful from a following standpoint and viewership.
But you don't want that to be
you don't want that to be the driving force.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure, like, as we're like developing through this idea, is our heart posture kind of in the right place? And if it is, you just keep taking the next step, the next step, and the next step, and praying, this isn't something I'm supposed to do, just shut the door.
Well, and it's not always just that clean and simple either. It's not like the Holy Spirit speaks and then everything works out.
Yeah.
So I've tried to be more intentional about listening on those stops along the way. You know, are things falling into place? And I will say from past experience that maybe when there is doubt there, he shows the way. It might be little at a time, but you know, I wish I had more time to do a lot of things, you know, and I feel like when it is something he really needs me to lay hands on that somehow other things are multiplied. Like, you know, you look back and you're like, he did pave that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was able to find that time, and other things were, maybe there were hands on other things that I needed to multiply my time. So, it's kind of cool to look back on those things, but it is a struggle because I feel that,
Yeah.
and I struggle too as a Christian and as a business leader, because sometimes I do doubt if I do share, is that going to potentially, is that going to be polarizing to a client? Is that going to be polarizing to a teammate? And I think that with wisdom and over time, you realize that, speaking your truth, really, you're going to have people who, are magnets to you that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been. And so it's okay if maybe, there is some shedding of others. So, or opportunities open. So
That part of me, I was so scared of too. Is like, what if somebody doesn't believe like me and they're offended by it?
Right.
I've found the opposite in most cases. It's that people that don't believe like you want to ask you more questions, and I want to ask them more questions. My favorite thing to do is challenge the things that I've always thought were to be true and making sure that they're true. Like I want every question that would bring down my faith to be asked to me, because
makes you better.
It makes me better. It always makes my faith end up being stronger.
All right. So little Noah, he's at a little checkup right now. He's a little 9-month-old guy.
Yep.
Comes to you when he's 18 and he says, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I feel so lost. And I'm, starting to think about that next season of my life. What does Dad say to him when he's questioning his purpose and what his next steps are, as he's going into adulthood? That's crazy to think about, too.
It is crazy to think about.
He's got a 9-month-old guy. But he comes to you and he's like, what does that look like? And help me, reflect on your own life and maybe give me some of that wisdom. What do you say to 18-year-old Noah when he's trying to find those answers for his next big season? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, right now...
What am I going to be when I grow up, Dad?
Yeah, so right now, this is just a 30-second blurb, and then I'll get into that. Right now, every night, we have a children's Bible, and I listened to this podcast about how to become a better public speaker, and it talked about, like, tone and pace and your, like, just changing your voice. And so the best way to practice that is to reading with your kids. And so every night we read the Bible together. We just got through the Old Testament of his children's Bible.
Tell me that you do like voices.
Oh yes, God's voice. God
and
told
then the
Noah.
angel said.
So that's been awesome. So 18 years from now, I hope that he gets to see the faith that his parents have had for 18 years, so that when he's ready, he knows, I would answer that question. I would say, don't focus on what you're going to do. It's going to change. Focus on how and why. So how you're doing it is you're going to show up every day and you're going to work the hardest in the room. You're going to treat everyone how they're supposed to be treated, how you've learned the last 18 years how to treat someone. And why you're doing it, our purpose in life is two things: to know Jesus, to know God, and to make him known. And so whatever you do over the next 12 years, and I would say go and screw up a lot in the next 12 years in terms of jobs. Like, go do jobs that you don't know if you want to do, but you do them, you learn something, and then you move on.
And you know that you don't want to.
Yeah. Because I worked in a lumber yard for a week and quit. I hated it.
Not doing that.
Not doing it. But I learned I didn't want to do a lumber yard. So I would say just do those things. And when you find something you love, I heard this yesterday, when you find something you love and you've done your work that you're supposed to do, go to your boss and say, hey, what else can I do? What can I do more? And then that boss is going to start looking at you like their right hand man. You're going to get all kinds of opportunities way faster than if you just clock in, clock out, and move on. So, yeah.
So, and don't be afraid to fail. That's a good one.
Don't be afraid to fail. I mean,
try out the lumber yard,
I've failed, like, the amount, and I'm super, super competitive. I hate losing way more than I love winning. But like the failures are your only way to, like, once you experience a failure, you don't want to have that same feeling again. So you do way better the next time to prevent that failure. And when those start to stack onto each other, you end up having more wins than you do losses.
Well, but that's full circle.
Yep.
From football coach to, business owner. sports teach you a lot as a kid, you
Yep.
know, they teach you a lot as an adult too, but growing up playing sports, you know, you learn to get up, try again, you know, and to work on a team and all that. So those things that we try out throughout our career and our journey to figure out what our maybe, you know, end game is or what that, you know, as we're testing out things, it's good to test out and potentially fail. But you're learning something all along the way, all of the things that you've done in your career to date and all the things that you've experienced in life have led you to where you are now.
Well, if you think about it, if you tie it back to the biblical stance, everyone knows that in the world. But if you wanted to apply it to the Bible, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't know God. I mean, they trusted in God, and until they were in the fiery furnace, they didn't know, like, that's when he proved that he was with them. Daniel in the lion's den, Job, got, you know.
All the best stories was under conflict.
Yeah, it's like, take away everything, strip away everything, and you will, you know, God proves that he's faithful in that. And so you just it's hard. It's easier said than done because being in the trials and the valleys sucks, but
you're learning.
Yep, you learn. So.
Well, you're a blessing to me. I always enjoy sitting down and chatting with you, either being filmed or not filmed. You and I are serving the same demographic. We are working in the senior space, very different art forms, but still serving. And it's just a joy to do it alongside you and appreciate you coming and chatting with us today. So one last question. What's the next season? What's the next big thing for Nate Jones? What are you excited about that's coming up in a potential next season of your life?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. You know, right now we're focused predominantly on telling the stories short form on social media. But I think like things like documentaries, like we're working on a documentary. This is outside of senior living for a friend of mine that plays in the NFL. Where we want to do a documentary in senior living. We have some ideas around that. Potentially some news segments. I can't go into much detail about that, but like there's all kinds of things that need to change, that need to be done to change the public's view about aging and seniors. And so we just want our fingerprints or how we can help with that mission as much as we can. And so, yeah, it's just, it all comes back down to telling stories and telling them in a dignified way.
Well, I love it. Well, we'll be here rooting you on. So thanks for coming and hanging out
Thank you.
today. It was a
Thank you
joy.
so much. Appreciate it.